For this video, we're going to discuss Python variables. Let's get started. First of all, the good news is that Python variables, when you go to create variable names, they're just like Java. So you can't start with a number and you can't start with a weird character, but you can start with a letter or an underscore. You can use both numbers and letters inside your Python field names. You can also use the underscore. You cannot use spaces. You can't use the dash. You can't use different odd characters like question mark or ampersand. And variable names in Python are case sensitive. So if you capitalize it one place and don't capitalize it another place, then it's going to be two different variables. This is a really interesting difference between Python and Java. So in Python, you don't introduce your variables. Instead, when you put something in a variable, that is the same as introducing it and assigning a value to it. So in this case, if I want to put a number into a variable like x, I would say x is equal to that number. At that point, the variable is introduced and it's loaded with whatever value I put into it. Also interesting is that your variables can change types. So if we start by putting a number into x and then we want to put a string into it later, we can do that. Let's go ahead and start Python and let's try that. So here's my editor. I'm going to make a new file and we'll just call it variable testing. And let's make a variable named x and set it to 42. And we can print it out. So if we run this program, we should be able to see that we have variable x and that it's equal to 42. So I went ahead and saved it and ran it, and you can see over here on my shell that x printed 42. Now, since we're on the subject of printing, if I want to just put a variable into the print function, it'll handle it. But if I try to mix variables, numeric variables, and string literals, it gets a little messy. So if I say print x is equal to plus x, which would have been pretty okay in Java, but if I try that, I'm going to get an error message. And it says you can only concatenate string, not int to string. So in essence, what it's saying is that this x is a number, and I can't concatenate a number to a string. So what I have to do is convert it to type string before I can stick them together. I do that with the string function. So here I'm just wrapping the x variable into a string function, and now I can join it to the text literal that's already there. So at this point that should work. So save, run module, and here you can see my number 42 and x is equal to 42. Both of those are working. Now let's also test what happens if I try to throw a string into x. So let's say x is now equal to the answer. And if I print out x this time, then I should get the answer. And also of interest is because x is now a string, I can say x is equal to plus x. And this is no longer a number, so I can now do that without doing the string function. So let's test that. So here we have 42, x is equal to 42, and then it prints out x again, and this time x is the answer, and x is the answer. So kind of interesting that your variables, once you create them, they aren't stuck as an integer or a float. Instead, whatever you put into that variable, it becomes that type. A couple of other interesting things to me. One is that we can assign multiple values at the same time. So here I'm setting x, y, and z to 42, and then let's print them out. So x is equal to plus string of x plus y is equal to plus string of y plus z is equal to plus string of z. And if I run that, I get x is equal to 42, y is equal to 42, z is equal to 42. We can also introduce these like this. So x comma y comma z is equal to 42, 43, 44. And in this case, it'll take the first number and assign it to x, the second number and assign it to y, the third number and assign it to z, which is, again, very different and kind of interesting. So let's run that. Run module. You can see x is equal to 42, y is equal to 43, and z is equal to 44.